Hey, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and CLNS Media. My pleasure to again welcome back Richard Skinny of Local 12 and Local12.com to discuss the upcoming NFL Combine. It starts tomorrow as we record this. They will be Tuesday through next Sunday at I almost said RCA Dome, at Lucas Oil Stadium.
That's a long time ago.
It is. Showing my age spots a little bit there, Skinny. But the NFL Combine takes place. We get the media opportunity and availabilities Tuesday, Wednesday, and a little bit on Thursday. And then really the Combine starts on Thursday with offensive linemen and rolls through the entire weekend. So we want to certainly get into that subject. There's a lot of Bengal-related conversation regarding some of the players they should be taking a look at, perhaps some of the rumors about who and who will not be taking part, because that's always a big story at this event, unfortunately. But business is business, as they say, Skinny. But first off, I want to get to your terrific column on Local12.com talking about the significance of a possible blueprint the Kansas City Chiefs may have offered the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of restructuring and saving significant cap space going into free agency and going into 2026 as it pertains to Joe Burrow. The Kansas City Chiefs restructured the contract of Patrick Mahomes, not because they really wanted to. They absolutely had to. Skinny, how much were they over the cap going in before the restructure?
I want to say, I'm doing this in the ballpark, I think it was something like 50 mil, and they've chopped it down to they're still over. But they have like 4 or 5 other guys they can and probably will do restructures with in order to get under the cap. So they're still on the opposite side of the cap number. They don't have any cap space, but they were way in cap jail if they hadn't done this with Mahomes. But this has always been on the table. They did it last year. They might have done it in 2023 with him as well. They seem to, with Patrick Mahomes, always do the restructure knowing eventually you're going to pay the piper for this. But listen, when you've got the window of Patrick Mahomes, you're trying to maximize the chances to win, and they have some things they have to do to fix it. They have to get under the cap problems that are under, and that's one way for them to do it. And the Bengals can do something similar with Joe Burrow, not because they're in cap jail, but to provide even more cap space to win now. Listen, you know this as well as I do, Mike. It's been talked about. And the Bengals really do a good job of managing their cap. I want to say that first and foremost. They're never in cap trouble. Maybe to the detriment of the organization. Sometimes they stay under the cap and roll some money over from year to year to year, but they're never in cap trouble. Doing things like this can eventually put you in cap trouble. And I'm fine with that because the Joe Burrow window is the win now window.
Right.
Who cares 5, 6, 7 years from now?
This drives me nuts.
Right.
This drives me absolutely nuts. You want to quote a once famous NFL head coach, now in college, the object of the game, you play to win the game.
Yes.
You play to win the game, said Herman Edwards time after time after time. The thing that drives Bengal fans nuts is everybody knows there's a window. It's an overused term in sports, but it certainly applies to the Bengals and Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow knows there's a window. And, when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins under extensions for at least the next 3 seasons, you want to maximize those 3 seasons. You deal with kicking the can down the road. And the Bengals have admitted they don't like kicking the can down the road. Why is that? Well, there is this. And I want to read from the second paragraph of your column on Local12.com. The Chiefs restructured quarterback Patrick Mahomes' contract, moving from roughly $50 million over the projected salary cap to about $11 million under. This is at the time of your posting last week, Skinny. The team converted just over $44 million of Mahomes' 2026 base salary and a $10.4 million roster bonus into a fully guaranteed $54 million roster bonus. That means cash, right, Skinny?
Yep. Yeah, and so what you do for that is the extent of his contract, I think it goes out to 2031 maybe. You can then prorate that each year. So you're not counting the whole $54 million against the cap. You're allowed, and you know this, Mike, I'm just explaining to some of the audience, that you can spread that out over. So do the math. If there's 6 years left on his contract, it's then a $9 million per year hit along the way. So that is significant savings that they're utilizing. And for Patrick Mahomes, it's a win of, I got $54 million to go invest right now. I'm not getting game checks. I'm not worried about my game checks. I'm worried about give me the cash up front. It's a win for both parties. And that's where when you go back to this Joe Burrow circumstance, let's go through a couple of numbers real quick. Let's go where the Bengals are currently from a salary cap standpoint. If you go to Spot Rack or Over the Cap, they're roughly the similar numbers. They show them at roughly $53 million under the cap at the moment. That's great money. I remind Bengals fans, they don't want to hear this. I get yelled at, but I've written it. I know you've written it. Paul Dehner writes every year. Subtract about $10 to $12 million from that number because you Bengals do have to fully pay for a roster. They have to pay for the
operational part of the salary cap.
Yes. People don't want to hear that. They see that raw number. They always assume, well, the Bengals are still 12 mil under the cap. No, by the time you do all the machinations, they're probably about where they should be. They're even. So always subtract about 10 to 12 mil. So we're still working off of a pretty good number, $41 million, right? I can even add to that if I want to cut some players. I think B.J. Hill's a candidate to get cut. T.J. Slayton's a candidate to get cut. There may be a player or two, maybe a Drew Sample. I don't know if that happens, but you got a couple. So you can save a little bit more there, so you'll have a little bit more. But working off the exercise that theathletic.com did, where they have a spreadsheet, and again, it's an exercise. It's kind of for fun, but they try to be as realistic as possible. They came up with an extra $12 million in cap savings if they restructure Joe Burrow's contract. It could be less than that. It could be well more than that. And when all is said and done, you put that in that general pot of money, then you really can do a lot of things in free agency. And I don't think anybody would disagree that the Bengals have a lot of things they need to do in free agency.
Well, no kidding. Here's the thing. The Bengals deserve full marks for salary cap responsibility, air quotes.
Yeah. Yes.
Salary cap responsibility. They absolutely do a terrific job of that. The other thing they do a terrific job of is, and I lost my train of thought briefly here, but they really are responsible with their budget. They absolutely are, and they get full marks for that. However, the problem is with the optics in the NFL, in their fan base, what they don't do is they're not aggressive in going out in free agency and doing what we're talking about, moving numbers around so that they have tens of millions of dollars of extra cap space. The other thing I don't think do a particularly good job of, and they need to improve upon this, is the vision of massive contracts coming up. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The biggest criticism, full marks for signing those two, as I just said. They absolutely deserve credit for getting that done. The problem was, besides the fact that it distracted from other needs last offseason, is that they could have addressed this much earlier and been in a much more advantageous cap position to go out and sign the free agents to help the Bengals in this Burrow window. That's the problem. And that you have to dig, and you have to be very nuanced in your understanding of how the NFL and the salary cap works. Because when we go into this ice cream headache kind of number crunching that we're doing, this is why it matters. Bottom line is, you want your team, the Bengals, to go out and be as aggressive in free agency as they can. You're not going to hit on every single free agent. That just doesn't, you're not going to be 100%. Nobody is. That's totally fine and understandable. But you want to show your fan base that you are doing everything possible to win now and give your best players that you have now, franchise players, the best chance to go out and win a Super Bowl. Kansas City has 3 Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes. The Bengals have 0 with Joe Burrow. Don't need to remind anybody of that, but I just did. That's why the Kansas City move reduced Patrick Mahomes' 2026 cap hit from $78.2 million to $34.65 million by prorating that bonus over the remaining 6 years of his deal. Now, fast forward to Joe Burrow. Burrow signed a 5-year, $275 million contract extension in September of 23. It included a $40 million signing bonus, $219 million guaranteed. His 2026 cap hit is scheduled to be $47.99 million. So, Skinny, as we were talking before we started the recording here, the Bengals could get aggressive and reduce that figure by 10 to 12 million, correct?
Maybe even more than that, depending on how aggressive they are with this. But I'm going to use the Athletic example just because it gives you a number to play off of, and I think it's a fair number. So yeah, 10 to 12 million dollars, and that's a key player, Mike. That's just not going. Well, we can get a fourth cornerback with that. No, you can't. You can get a starting caliber player somewhere on that defense with that money. A good player with that kind of money. That's significant.
Yes, and that's what the Bengals need. We talked about this last week, Skinny. They not only need a lot of players, I think the priority this year needs to be identifying 2 to 3 legitimate big-time playmakers they can add to the defense. I mean, it's fine to go out and add guys, right? Geno Stone was supposed to be one of those guys. They weren't getting a Pro Bowl caliber player, but they were getting a solid middle of the defense for your spine type of guy to play deep. And it just didn't work out well for the Bengals because some of his weaknesses, like wrapping up, tackling, whatnot, were exposed. And the Bengals need to avoid those kind of free agent signings, and they need to go out and get, like, Trey Hendrickson, I think, is out the door. I'm counting him as good as gone. Maybe they tag and trade, but like you explained in your column on Local 12 last week, I don't think that's realistic, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either. And I don't. We talked Max Crosby a little bit. If they were one piece away, a Max Crosby piece away, and you could afford it, absolutely. But one Max Crosby when you have other needs, it just doesn't seem to fit. I mean, again, I'm working off this exercise, and it's not perfect. It's not the be all end all. It's not the definitive word, but it was fun to do. I mean, Mike, with the money I ended up saving with the Joe Burrow and some other moves, cutting B.J. Hill, cutting T.J. Slaton, I signed a proven nose tackle. I signed John Franklin Myers, arguably the best tackle on the free agent market. He's going to cost a pretty penny. I was able to sign an edge rusher in Draymond Jones. In the draft, then, I was able to get another defensive lineman along the way. I was able to sign Alex Anzalone, who's a solid linebacker, a veteran who's been there, done that, and could be a nice guy. And there's a couple others out there, too. If you want to take your pick of guys and you want to evaluate them better than I do, that's fine. I'm just giving you the ballpark of where it was and what he cost. I was able to sign a safety in Kobe Bryant. I was able to sign a slot corner, even though I'm going to draft one. And the Bengals just re-signed Jalen Davis to add to that mix, too. Right. So you're able to do a lot of things, man, and they have a lot of things to do.
They do. And where do you think Trey Hendrickson winds up?
It's a good question.
Just give me
because I just Indy. That feels right, but I also just wonder what the market is for him. I think it's over. I can't remember which one does that. They do valuations of players, either spot rack or over the cap. One of them does a nice job with that. They try to compare guys' ages and careers and where they are to other players. They valued him at 2 years, $57 million. I thought that was too high. I thought Pro Football Focus had a really good valuation of him, which I think is more the ballpark, which is a 1-year prove-it deal, $21 million, 17 of it guaranteed. And I don't know where that lands him. Indy seems to be a perfect spot if the price is right. I just don't see teams getting in a bidding war for a 32-year-old guy coming off of surgery. I think there's a market for him. I don't think it's a multi-year market for him. I think it's a 1-year prove-it market. Why not prove it if you're him with a guy you're comfortable with and familiar with in Lou Anarumo at a decent price?
Where are all these financial decisions? Who has the final say on making these financial decisions that we're talking about? Is it Mike? Is it Katie?
That's
Troy?
A great question. I mean, Katie is the salary cap guru in the organization. I know that. So she's the one that really does the crunch the numbers and the cap. And again, she does a good job of being responsible when it comes to the salary cap. I'll give her that. But I mean, I'm assuming it's got to be Mike. I mean, he has the title of president. So I would assume the president's the one that signs off on all these matters.
Well, I think Mike would only have the final say insofar as the money that it would take, the guaranteed money. And when we're talking about fully guaranteeing a bonus, as we said earlier, and the reason I pointed this out, it's cash, and that cash is an obligation to the team.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, I mean, the Joe Burrow money that $219 million has to be put in escrow. I mean, you've got to show that up front that you've got that cash to do. And but people were a little worried that they were going to be able to do that. They did it, obviously, and pulled it off. And they pulled it off with Jamar, and they pulled it off with T. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that can be a big ask. And so yeah, it has to be Mike. I mean, maybe he rubber stamps Katie and Troy's decisions in that regard. But or I could use the Duke Tobin line of maybe it's a conglomeration. I can't remember what word he used, but it's they certainly work in conjunction with one another.
The piece of the pie is
he loves piece of the pie. Yeah, they love piece of the pie.
Yes, he does.
Piece of the pie.
So bottom line, do you think a Joe Burrow restructure gets done this offseason?
Okay, so despite the column and despite talking about all that, I just don't, because it's just not their style. Now, they have said they will do, if you remember Mike's quote in the press release in which the Bengals announced that Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor would be back. I don't have the exact wording, so I'm going to paraphrase here, but that we are looking into everything we can do to make our organization better moving forward. And by that means you have to change the way you do some things, and this would be a change for them to restructure. It was a change for them to give Joe Burrow that much guaranteed money. It was a change for them to then give Jamar Chase that much guaranteed money, but they did it. So let's give a little kudos there. It sounds like it was, it should be easy to do, and it wasn't, but they did it. And this would be one for me of, I don't care about where you're at salary cap-wise in 2032. I'm sorry, I just don't if I'm a fan. I don't know if Joe Burrow's going to be in the league in 2032. Sure hope he is. I know Bengals fans sure hope he is, but he may not be. I mean, another injury or two. It gets to the point of, the organization's not giving him enough around him to win, and maybe he gets dissatisfied. I don't care about what your salary cap situation is then. I care of the things you can do now to build around Joe Burrow, because the time to win is now. And back to your earlier point about Kansas City, Mike, the last decade, Kansas City's been to the playoffs 9 times, won the division 9 times. Didn't go this past year. They had a losing record. But nine divisional titles, 5 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl titles. In the same period of time, the Bengals have been to 2 playoffs. They've had more losing seasons than winning seasons. You tell me which franchise you think runs things better, Kansas City or the Bengals?
Here's the quote, and you did a pretty doggone good job, Skinny, of recalling it off memory. We are taking a hard look at everything we do as we approach this offseason with focused determination to build a championship caliber roster that wins consistently. We are fully committed to delivering results that match the pride, passion, and expectations of this organization and our fans. You would like to think that that's more than just lip service from Bengals president and owner Mike Brown. He is Richard Skinner, does a fabulous job covering all things Cincinnati Bengals for Local 12 and Local12.com. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every rebound that much more exciting. So don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1, numero uno app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all of your favorite sports, anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, much, much more. Also, Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Now, also with the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with one single click. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Back with Richard Skinner of Local 12 and Local12.com. All right, the NFL Combine starts Tuesday in Indianapolis. We get player availabilities. We get media availabilities with head coach Zach Taylor and the director of player personnel, Duke Tobin. What are some of the questions that you plan to be asking, Skinny?
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do with Trey Hendrickson? Do you plan to tag him? Do you plan to try to talk to other teams about him? Where do you stand with that? Have you changed your approach heading into the combine about evaluating guys? There's a fascinating case study in this combine, Mike, of a player, Keldrick Falk, a defensive end edge rusher from Auburn, who
Right.
is far more traits over production, pops off the charts. I mean, this is where sometimes the
Uh-oh.
combine raises stock and sometimes the combine lowers stock, right? Let's just say he just tests off the charts at the combine, and they have a nice evaluation of him going in because they like his traits too. And he's going to probably be on the board at number 10. And let's just say you miss out on David Bailey and Reuben Bain Jr., and you have your heart set on getting an edge rusher to add to the mix. Are you really going to do this again? Are you really, really going to do this again? So the question is, have you thought about changing the way you evaluate talent of not just traits, but maybe more production over traits, or a better mix of the two when it comes to that? Because that's my fear is Keldrick Falk's there at 10. The two edge rushers are gone. Caleb Downs is gone. You're down between a Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU, or maybe somebody else in that room. And there's the guy who just tested off the charts at the combine with all these great traits, and you just can't pass him up because that's the way you do business. I would hope they've changed some of those things.
Well, I mean, traits are traits, and they are significant. They're not insignificant. I'm not saying that what Shamar Stewart showed on tape wasn't legit at Texas
No,
A&M.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you this. So I did a hit with Adam Clements at Local 12 the day after they took him, and the debate was all even then was the traits. I said, if
Sure.
you just go to his YouTube, one of his YouTube highlight things, don't know a thing about him. You don't know what he did in college. You just do me a favor, go watch this dude's tape. I'm not going to tell you how many sacks he had, whatever he did in college. You would go, wow. That's how much he popped, right?
Yes. And the problem here is that if he has all of that potential and you're drafting the tape, as they say, if you're drafting the measurables and going on that going forward, you start to question, okay, why aren't you getting the production out of him here at the NFL level, even in his rookie year? Now, there would be those who rationalize and explain it away simply by saying he was injured. He had the contract stuff. He had his agent, putting thoughts in his mind. He's still a young kid, not his responsibility. Give him, that pass in the rookie season. And I can kind of believe that, but the Bengals don't have a good enough history, Skinny, in developing enough of these players that have terrific tools, but they don't get to that next level and produce at the NFL level.
Yeah, and I know some people would point to coaching and say, well, that's your job. I don't know, man. There's some developmental things that are done at the NFL level, but this isn't like taking raw clay as a freshman coming out of high school and developing that guy. I mean, you don't really have that luxury anymore in college either. But I mean, how many guys are truly, truly, truly developed in the NFL? I mean, some, yes, no question. But I mean, you either are
Very
or
few
you
are.
aren't. Yeah, you either are or you aren't. That's the thing.
See, I don't know, Skinny. I think if you get a player with terrific measurables, here's the catch-22. If you're taking those terrific measurables and saying, we can get a hold of this guy, and even though he didn't produce at the NFL level, at the college level,
Yep.
we can get that out of him. Okay, then go prove that you can get that out of him.
That's a fair point.
And that's my point, is that the Bengals, okay, you took a chance on Shamar Stewart. He may turn out to be a perennial All-Pro. We don't know that yet, and he hasn't had a full NFL season under his belt yet, but he's been in the league one season. If he goes ahead and produces the way he should, what the Bengals expect from him, then kudos to the Bengals, and in hindsight, they were right to do what they did. My problem is Bengals don't have a history of developing this kind of player, surrounding him with a lot of players who can help him develop. And then that's the way a good system, a good culture gets built. I think Zach Taylor's done some things, or a lot of things, in the Bengals culture of like restructuring it in a very short period of time. I thought he did a very, very good job from taking the program where it was in 2016, 2017, 2018 to where it is now. Joe Burrow was a big part of that. But in the end, the coaches have to take responsibility for getting a hold of this guy and developing him into what his potential points to.
Yeah, and I'll circle back to what we originally talked about. Joe Burrow is a big part of that. And aren't you going to try to do everything in your power as an organization to give him all the tools to try to win this thing? I mean, you know you've got the franchise quarterback. That part's a given. You've got the guy. Now go get all the other pieces that help that guy take you over the. Look, did Patrick Mahomes win 3 Super Bowls on his own? Of course not.
No.
I mean,
right.
But was Patrick Mahomes a huge reason for their success and still will be moving forward? Absolutely. So that's where you do everything you can, everything in your power to get the pieces on defense, whatever else you might feel like you need on offense, and it's not very much, obviously. It's mostly just depth pieces. And you let Joe Burrow try to lead you to where you think he was going to lead you to when you're out of 2021 and 2022 seem so far long ago, don't they? Like that. The 2022 team was far better than the 2021 team. The 2022 team was a complete team. That was a terrific team that just came up short in the AFC Championship game. 2021 just kind of went on a magical run that came out of nowhere. But then it all of a sudden has died. Why? Because your roster's gotten worse. Go make your roster better. You've got a great opportunity to do it this offseason. Go do it.
Of the players that you're looking forward to seeing this week, who do you think, or who are you most anticipating watching out on the turf?
Well, there's a couple. Caleb Downs, I just want to see what that looks like. I mean, I know people, you're running around in your underwear. I know people have talked about his stature and his size, and maybe he doesn't run great. I just think the guy makes football plays. I think he's going to be one of those guys that comes out of the combine, you're going to be underwhelmed. I hope I'm not. But that guy's just a football player. That's where the combine to me sometimes it takes on a life of its own. John Ross running a 4.22 40. Well, good for him. John Ross couldn't run a route. I mean, the speed was there. It just nothing else was there for that guy. And so I think unfortunately we get wowed by those things, and we're going to hear it this week. I mean, I've already started reading stuff about Reuben Bain, and his arm length may not be there. He may not have long enough arms. I don't know. He had long enough arms to kick ass during the college football playoff. I saw that with my own 2 eyes. There's a little corner out of Indiana who's about Mike Hilton's stature. I can't remember his first name. His last name is Pons. Who's like 5'9", 175 pounds. Doesn't check the size box, but he's a bulldog. He's a terrier. He's Mike Hilton. Wouldn't you give for another Mike Hilton on this defense?
I would at the right position. I don't think I'm taking him at number.
No.
10,
He's a second or third round guy. But I'm just saying, just don't be underwhelmed by this. I'd rather see what I saw on tape or on the field that tells me that's just a football player, man. Reuben Bain's just a football player.
So as you know, and you know this very well from covering countless numbers of these, the irony of all of this over the next 5 to 6 days is the most important thing that takes place is what we don't see
the interview
on
process.
the field. The interview process. Take us through, give us a Reader's Digest version of why that's important, Skinny.
Well, there's a couple of things involved here. One is you're trying to get to know the kid. I mean, is the kid a smart ass? Is he a one-word answer guy? Does he know what he's talking about when you're asking him some things? But I think you're also trying to test to that point of what's this guy's character like? What if I ask him a tough question? How does he respond to that? Because he's going to face some of that same adversity. And I think they try to find a lot of those things out. There's a fantastic piece. I want to cite where it was. I want to say ESPN.com about Robert Turbin, who was a running back. And John Schneider said he was the greatest interview he ever had at the combine. Like, the kid just wowed everybody in the room with how professional he was, how quick he was with answers, how he wasn't full of BS, and they could tell that. And the kid was basically a mid-round player. That's where he was, but it was like, this guy pretty much he could have slid from the mid-round out depending on the interview. Instead, he kind of solidified himself because of the interview. There's some stories about the Shedeur Sanders interview process last year, right? And how bad that was, and that might have been a factor in why he continued to slide down the boards. And I think the interview process for these guys is really, really important because, again, it's, you got to have quick recall in the NFL. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to know, what's this guy like? Is he leaning back in his chair like this? Is that the way he's going to be in team meetings? Or is he up and sitting up and looking me in the eye and talking to me? And I think coaches take a lot from it. You can say it's BS, but for those of you who are watching this, if you've been through an interview process yourself for a job, I guarantee you if you plopped in that chair and sat across from the CEO and went, yeah, what do you got for me, guys? It's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
I've never used that strategy. I don't think I'm going to start.
No.
Some, I think, as we move off the combine and into some off the field news, Willie Anderson, he has a surgery coming up on March 3rd, and it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart. My sister had kidney disease. I will share with everyone that I'm a kidney donor to my sister. So anytime I see a story like this, it's important for me to point it out. And Willie Anderson deserves your thoughts and prayers on March 3rd. Any thoughts from you, Skinny,
Yeah,
when you heard the
I get.
news?
I guess I was stunned like everybody else. I didn't realize he was dealing with that. To be honest with you, maybe you did. I sure didn't. So it took me by surprise. And again, all the best to Willie Anderson for sure.
Hate to end on this note, but you have to address it. Rondale Moore, what happened to a 25-year-old man over the weekend. And I think the reason I bring this up on particularly on this podcast is what Bengals legend AJ Green had to say about Rondale Moore. And Skinny, I want to get your reaction to not only the tragedy of the apparent suicide, but AJ Green calling out not only to him but others who are dealing with anxiety and pressure, mental pressure, immense mental pressure for whatever reason. Uh, Go get yourself some help.
Yeah, I think J.J. Watt tweeted something similar to that as well. And for those that may not remember, A.J. Green was with the Cardinals for a period of time early in Rondale Moore's career. It might have even been his rookie year when A.J. was there. And it was very poignant. It's just so sad. I mean, it's a guy that, listen, I live in Kentucky. I coach basketball, high school basketball in Kentucky. I love high school sports in Kentucky. Rondale Moore is one of the most electric high school football players I've ever seen from the state of Kentucky. He played at Louisville Trinity High School, the marquee program in the state, and he was a man among boys back then, and went to Purdue and had really good success. But stature was one of those ones that probably knocked him down a peg. But then before he got hurt, was off to a nice start in his NFL career, and then obviously got hurt, and that probably takes you through a bad, awful wormhole. I think that's the one thing.
Yeah.
And we are all guilty of this, probably even those of us that cover the team a lot of times. We just take for granted that, da-da-da had to have off-season surgery to clean up something in his knee or his shoulder. Or, yep, this guy's out for the rest of the year because of Trey Hendrickson core muscle surgery. And you just go, okay, out of sight, out of mind. I don't need to. I don't know how many surgeries you've had in your life, Mike. I haven't had any. I've broken a couple of bones in my lifetime and stuff, but I haven't had to have a major surgery. I don't know what the mindset would be like, especially if you make your living with your body knowing I got to put myself back through the process. It felt like Andrew Luck got a lot of backlash when he finally said, I'm done getting hurt and having surgery and rehab, and I got other things I want to do with my life. Why are you quitting football at such a young age and you're making all this money and you're the star quarterback? I just can't imagine the mental toll it takes on somebody to do that time and time again of get cut on. You're out for an extended period of time. You're on your own other than those that you're, the group that's helping you do the rehab stuff, but you're kind of on your own. I'm sure there is a mental toll that day. There has to be a mental toll. And I think we all take that. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I just say I think we all take that stuff for granted.
I want to read the quote from AJ Green just because it's very powerful, and I think it's worth reading. Not my son, not Rondale. Man, we talk daily. FaceTime weekly. I'm so lost and hurt by this. Really wishing you had taken me up on that offer to come and stay with the family and me. I truly meant it. Love you forever, little bro. Praying you're in a better place now. I'm sick. You hurt me with this one, kid. That's a really powerful quote, and it touches all aspects of why this is such a tragedy. And you just pray that Rondale Moore's family can deal with this. And he didn't. I know that Minnesota's head coach put
Kevin
out.
O'Connell, yeah.
Thank you, Kevin O'Connell put out a statement also in the brief time that they had gotten to know him. He was a very sensitive and very intelligent teammate, and what it really also indicates, you never know. You never know what somebody's going through. And that's why I think, even in pro sports today, you try to offer these guys grace when possible. And when they, when you don't think they need it, give it to them.
Absolutely. No question. I'll leave it at that. A colleague in this business committed suicide a decade or so ago, maybe a little bit less than that. And I wasn't close with him, but I was friendly with him. But I had another colleague that was extraordinarily close with him, like best friends, drinking buddies, on the road together, all those things, ins and outs, knew probably all the things in and out. And he didn't see it coming. He never saw it coming. And that's just one of those ones where I'm sure AJ Green probably feels some remorse on top of that, right? Like, I wish I'd have taken you up on visiting with you. But yeah, I think the lesson here is you don't know what people are going through. So have some grace and have some humility.
Skinny, what are you working on, Local 12?
I'm doing nothing today other than this podcast, Mike, and then I'm going to the Combine with you on Tuesday and Wednesday. So look forward to seeing what Zach Taylor, Duke Tobin have to say on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, the two coordinators, Dan Pitcher and Al Golden. I will not be there for the Darren Simmons one on Thursday, but I like Darren quite a lot, and Darren always fills notebooks up with good nuggets. I mean, he gave us so much nuanced stuff of the way snap, like you take long snappers for granted, not just them getting it back there cleanly, but the nuance of how it gets back there in the right number of revolutions where the laces are the right. It was fascinating. It's like, I couldn't have told you that Cal Adamitis was a bad long snapper. He's not. But William Wagner out long snapped him in camp for little nuancy things that none of us would have ever noticed, because there was never unplayable snaps from either guy.
There's only one guy that would know that. It's Darren
That's right,
Simmons.
Darren
That's
Simmons.
why
Yeah.
he is in the perfect position.
He really is.
For what he does for a living. So that is great. All right. He is Richard Skinny of Local 12 and local12.com. Follow all of his great stuff there. Follow all of his content from the NFL Combine over the next several days on local12.com. Follow all of my content from the NFL Combine as well. That will be on CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. Be sure to follow me on the X at Trags, Trags. We'll have lots of interviews, as Skinny mentioned, from Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor as well. And also follow me on my YouTube channel, where you can, of course, follow the YouTube podcast. That is at the Jungle Roar podcast at youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod. For our proud sponsor, Prize Picks, and the great people at CLNS Media, I'm Mike Petralia. Keep that jungle roaring.